What changed the trajectory of my family from being farmers in Texas, where 1 in 8 kids went to school? My grandfather actually being that one. My grandfather going to college. He had a high school teacher that didn't give up on him and drove him to TCU's campus to help him get started. And his story is actually very similar to so many that we hear today. He worked to pay his way through college, had to take a break, and actually became a fighter pilot. But he was so determined to finish his degree that he enrolled in Maryland while he was deployed in Japan, continued courses at Trinity and Chapman, and finally graduated from Corpus Christi. The system was hard for him to operate within, but there was also no other choice. There was no other alternative at the time. So what I've come to realize from leading research on the education space at Google for the last 2 years is that what brought my family out of poverty a generation, 2 generations ago, isn't going to be what's going to cut it for the next generation. Now, fast forward, I'm a millennial. I went to school less than 20 years ago, and choosing a boot camp, a short course, or a certificate wasn't really even an option for me to pursue with my career. I moved through a system that looked very similar to my grandfather's reality, just a bit more expensive and with updated textbooks. But here we are today, and I'm having conversations with my cousin over Thanksgiving on what certificates I have and comparing those to enrolling in a master's program because she wants to make a career pivot. And that very moment, that consideration, is at the heart of our conversation today. Because this isn't just my story or my family's story. You have a story, and so do the millions of prospective students that you're trying to reach. There are forces that have made our current model outdated. So we're on this precipice of change across every facet of our education system, with educators, with students, and employers. All of these individual areas are also working to change the greater whole. But at the end of the day, we have to start with the user. We have to start with the student perspective. So this year, we commissioned a study with Ipsos to dig deeper on the students' functional and emotional drivers propelling this shift in preferences and values. Here, we asked current students which type of program they were planning to enroll in. We run this survey quarterly. So we're looking at the results from January in the light blue bars and July in the dark blue. And we found a 2x jump in students enrolled in a certificate and 3x in boot camps. That's absolutely crazy in the span of just 6 to 7 months. Now, of course, there's always a skeptic, which I think is a good thing. Haven't we heard this is the year of the MOOC or boot camp certificates for the last 10 years. These are 2 articles from 2018 highlighting a 500% growth in short courses. These articles were definitely onto something back in 2018, but they didn't have a tidal wave propelling the space forward and accelerating change in learning modalities the way that we do today for people like my cousin or for what would have worked really well for my grandfather all those years ago. So let me explain. Let's break apart that tidal wave and understand what's really happening here. And we see 2 catalysts. Let's start with the first, which is the skills gap. Our research shows that there are 17 million employees that have a gap in required skills for the job that they're currently working in. That's a massive gap to close in the US alone. Now imagine if we expand this number globally. And because of the pace of innovation, this is only going to continue to get worse. It's only going to continue to accelerate if we don't take action. But learners are also taking matters into their own hands and turning to short courses, certificates, and boot camps to quickly and affordably upskill or reskill. And research shows that they're actually seeing a major payoff. 30% of current non-degree students say that a degree might qualify them for that job, but an online short course, actually, they feel like it better prepares them for the job. And those that graduate with a degree and a certificate report even better payoff. And employers are seeing this massive gap in their talent pipeline and responding by shifting the way that they think about qualifying skills. We're seeing an influx of companies accept credentials on par or in place of degrees. We're seeing an influx of influencers question the value of a degree publicly. And we're seeing an influx of companies partner with boot camps and short course providers. These headlines are just a few of the examples of the big announcements that we've seen over the last year. Now, the reality is that many companies were accepting credentials long before 2020 or 2021, but again, now they're talking about it in a big way. So learners hear those announcements and start changing their consideration set. Almost 30% of prospective non-degreed students say that they're enrolling in these types of programs because employers are accepting these over a degree. So as the skills gap widened, so did the acceptance of non-degree programs as an equally acceptable way to get that job in IT or to get that promotion in marketing, like my cousin. It makes it possible for those who chose not to get a 4-year degree to have the same equitable opportunity as others. So now that we've talked about the needs of our ecosystem changing, let's talk about the heart of what our ecosystem wants, which has also changed, especially in the last year with the complexity of life changing so dramatically. So the second catalyst is just life being very complex. My team and I spend a lot of time with call center admissions teams. We do call center immersions where we actually sit with an academic officer and listen to their calls with students as they navigate a whole slew of complex situations and considerations. We do this to better understand what students are going through. This calendar is emblematic of so many conversations that we hear where students are struggling to decide if they can make that final decision and enroll. Because these are mothers and fathers and they're racing from breakfast to school drop-off to work. They're trying to climb up the professional ladder at work and their day is absolutely packed. They race to pick up the kids, to pay the dog walker. And maybe they're not a parent. Maybe they don't have kids, but they're a caretaker for a family member. Or they've just got a really stressful job. Life is crazy. Life is scheduled because it has to be to keep all of these things in order. And things like control are human nature. We form these routines and it's uncomfortable to break them. So school has to fit into a student's life, not the other way around. But why? Why are students flocking to these non-degree programs? It's almost as simplistic as human nature. We crave that control, flexibility, and gratification, or ROI. It's clear through our survey results that students find these three motivators core to why they want to enroll in a non-degree program. And what that looks like are non-degree students believing that these programs provide better job readiness, the ability to quickly learn a new skill, and they're more financially accessible. This provides that safety and control in their careers. They're more flexible, which makes it easier to merge formal learning into that routine or into their life. And they enroll because it adds value to their personal needs. They believe that it opens these doors to new job opportunities, to new career opportunities that they feel like they never otherwise would have been able to access. So it's gratifying. And it's not just what they are telling us in our survey results. It's how they're searching for non-degree programs and certificates. What we're looking at here are index searches on Google, showcasing that steady uptick and a ton of volume in certificates, even over degrees. Now, of course, educators, the ecosystem, are waking up to these trends in a big way. The majority, so 61% of presidents agree that they will update their portfolio to offer more online short courses instead of full-time in-person classes to increase revenue or cut costs. But that also means that 40% of schools aren't taking action here and responding to the market shifts at play. So whether you're already there and you're part of that 60% or you're still evaluating strategy, I'm sure the next question is, okay, so how do I get started? What's the playbook here? And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Erin, to walk through that action plan.
Thank you, Abby. So what comes next? Like Abby, I have a strong personal connection with the education space. My mom was a teacher for over 35 years, and what she tells me every single day is that the pace of innovation she's seen over the last several months is more than she saw over her entire career. This photo is taken of her at the White House accepting the Blue Ribbon Award on behalf of her school district as a leader in innovation of all things back in 1990. Needless to say, she's amazed by how quickly institutions and educators have had to adapt over the last 18 months just to stay in the game. When I think about us here today, I'm struck by the task ahead, the weight of the moment, and how important it is for us to act now or risk being left behind. Through our research, we've identified 3 critical opportunities to capitalize on in the coming months and years ahead. These 3 areas are critical not just to surviving, but to ultimately thriving in this new frontier. The first is program diversification. Are you building, adapting, and diversifying your offerings to align with student preferences? And are you doing so in a way that delivers high-quality outcomes and experiences for students? We know there's already a strong appetite for short courses, but looking forward, we have to be prepared for seamless career application and stacking. The majority of students today, 53%, are likely to consider enrolling in an online short course if they can transfer the skill developed from that course to advance their career. And 47% of students want to use an online short course to build towards degree. This is something we know our students want, the degree. They just want it on their own time and at their own pace. And it's great that a majority of higher ed leadership are adapting their offerings to include short courses, as we heard earlier from presidents and provosts. But there's still a significant gap in quality. Now, there's so many components to quality, faculty being great teachers, content, UX, etc. But let's not boil the ocean. Let's focus on what you can immediately act upon, and that's the user experience solved by technical advancement. With online learning fragmented for 44% of students today, ensuring we provide the right experience is critical. 52% of students say they had limitations conversing with classmates, and 46% of students said they had limitations with participation with their instructors. This is table stakes in a world where hybrid learning is becoming the new norm. And there's significant risks to inaction here. If you don't start building the right curriculum for students by expanding into short courses, someone else will. In fact, they already are. This is just one example, but Scott Galloway's offering isn't the only one out there. There are literally thousands of these courses popping up every day. Learners and companies alike are currently spending at least $10 billion each year on micro and alternative credentials, with the expectation that that market will double over the next 3 to 5 years. However, higher ed institutions are well poised to be a leader in this space. Alternative pathway students expect national universities to have these short course programs, and we've heard from students that their strong preference is to experience the full-on university ecosystem. They come to a university for a short course, certificate, and degree. But with the abundance of choice out there, how are students deciding where to enroll? This is where the heightened importance of brand reputation comes into play. Is your brand name and reputation something you're proud of and your students gravitate towards? Look at all of these logos on the right. This is what you're up against. If I were to do this presentation a week from now, it's likely that competition would be even higher. On average, there are 20 new entrants competing against your brand, and some of the biggest and oldest brands are the newest to digital marketing. And you're not just competing against other schools. When I search for an IT degree on the left, you'll see that that boot camp is showing up in the same place as flagship universities. So now is the time to get in the game. And no brand is safe. For those of you that don't have a strong brand reputation, now is the time to invest and build. If you already have strong brand health, now is the time to capitalize on the opportunity to engage and enroll more students. And this is even more important because students are using brand reputation to guide their enrollment decisions. In fact, 74% of students say having a strong national reputation for a program is very important. And that number is even higher for short courses at 85%. So we've discussed the importance of diversifying your programs and delivering quality offerings, which will fuel your brand reputation. Now let's close the loop of this ecosystem and bring in the employer perspective. And the employer perspective is so important because ultimately students want job placement. 43% of students say a quality program is one that has high job placement rates upon completion. And 81% of business professionals believe that better aligning educational curricula with job openings could resolve the skills mismatch in the marketplace today. So partner with industry professionals, key faculty, partners, and your career services team to deliver against this. This will help keep your curriculum up to date and job ready. The pace of innovation has accelerated so fast that the half-life of a skill is now only 5 years. And for employers, you aren't going to be the only company engaging in lifelong learning. As of last year, 68% of businesses were investing in reskilling and upskilling their workforce. But we found that employees aren't capitalizing on the programs available to them. We have to raise awareness that they have access to this programming. Even beyond that, less than a quarter of employees that were aware are taking advantage of these options. So as you think about embarking on this transformational journey, we wanted to give you 3 actionable steps to get started. The first is leverage your partnerships to align with student wants and needs to ensure you're building a student-centric strategy. Google is just one partner that you can tap into to understand market trends and mindset shifts among students. The second is do a tech audit. Understand where your institution is and how you can improve the learning experience through technology. We talked about brand investment. It's worth it. Students are using this as a primary data point to guide their enrollment decisions. And finally, engage in a 2-way dialogue with employers to ensure your courses mirror employer needs. So we've discussed the implications of the new value exchange for institutions, students, and employers to make lifelong learning a reality and meet the evolving needs of current students and the 40 million prospective students out there today. Institutions are able to scale their offerings and enrollments while cutting costs. Students will continue to have greater flexibility and higher job placement rates. And employers will attract and retain top talent by investing in reskilling and upskilling their workforce. My mom loves the quote, "Change is the end result of all true learning." Everything you need to capitalize on in this moment is right in front of you. Again, learn from your students, hear what they need, and continue to evolve your offerings and the way you deliver them. For all of us here at ASU+GSV, this is such an exciting and critical flashpoint in education. Let's work together to continue to push this innovation forward and deliver exceptional experiences for our future students.